So outline and assess that, assess the view that
class structure is changing.
the social class structure is changing in the contemporary UK, yes? Okay, so 40-mark question. This is for the inequality exam, social inequality and difference. OCR, 40 marks. Outline and assess the view.
Social class structure is changing.
Social class structure is changing in the contemporary UK. So, in the introduction, we're going to do two main things. Firstly, we're going to define key words and phrases. So we're going to say things like social class refers to, and then we could talk about the objective, and subjective dimensions of and measures of class. So objective and subjective dimensions and measures of class refers to income and wealth for objective, and subjective refers to norms and values and lifestyle, because objectively we can compare with an agreed scale like the National Statistical Socio-Economic Classification Index, NSSEC. We can compare people's levels of occupations and incomes in the class system.
What's IW?
Okay, so income and wealth is to do with material factors of class, okay, which can be compared objectively. So objective and material. How much money you have physically, material, objectives of class, okay, dimensions of class. Subjectively, what you think your class is. So it's subjective because it's based on your opinion. Okay, so subjectively, so that's not to do with material dimensions like income and wealth, it's to do with your beliefs. And it's to do with your lifestyle. Okay. So you might think you're bourgeoisie, Abbas, yes?
Unfortunately, you're not.
But unfortunately, in material terms, you're not, because you don't have the amount of wealth that is necessary. Perhaps you might think that. Okay. So class can be divided in two ways. It has two main dimensions. It has material and cultural factors in class. Material factors, how much I have physically. Cultural factors, what I do, what I think I am, my norms and values. For example, the middle class have more wealth and more income compared to the working class. But they have less wealth and less income compared to the upper class. So material factors of class, middle class is somewhere in the middle. Cultural factors, the middle class believe in career, trying to get a good job. The upper class believe in having wealth and having the right to rule, traditionally. The working class believe in having fun and enjoying life because work is just a means to an end. It's not always that simple, but there's some examples there. Work hard and party harder, yeah, absolutely. Any questions so far? What is IW? Income and wealth. So that's materially what you physically have, yes? Okay, any other questions? Okay, so social class structure. What is the traditional social class structure, Junaid, in the UK?
In contemporary UK,
Well, yeah, just traditionally, because we're going to talk about changes over time.
Upper class, middle class, the working class.
And possibly an underclass. What's the name for this system where we have three main groups and perhaps a small group at the bottom, underneath the bottom?
Tripod.
Tripartite system, Abbas. Tripartite system. So we can talk about, traditionally, social class system is a tripartite system. It has three parts. Tripartite system. And then you can refer to this phrase, social class structure is changing. So you can say, however, some argue that this is changing. So there are changes to the social class structure. So we could refer to changes socially. Okay? Groups like the family. Recorded you saying you're giving your remorse forevermore. YouTube. There will be a recording of your voice saying sorry. Forever.
You know, underneath the CEO culture, you've got both.
Do you not record all that time?
No. Okay, so however, the social class structure is changing from a tri-level model, according to some thinkers. Socially, in terms of groups and institutions, groups like the family, the workplace, the media, peer groups, religion, all changing. Politically, the rights and level of power and influence of different groups is shifting over time. Economically, the way in which we work and the way in which we consume products and services is changing over time. Culturally, our norms and values, our status and role systems are changing over time. So our culture is changing. Economically. So socially, politically, economically, culturally, society is changing, and the social class structure is part of that change, those changes. So again, we could just list socially, politically, economically, culturally, and then the rest of the essay can make reference to those changes.
I was in the introduction.
This is just the introduction, so you're absolutely right. There's a big chance. In fact, it's more than just a chance. Okay, there are several responses to this question. Okay, so the view may be supported by
Which view?
the view in the question.
Oh.
Okay, because we always do this, refer to the view in the question and refer to the sociological perspectives or general approaches that would support the view in the question and those that would go against it to give you a plan for your essay. And it shows the reader that you understand what the question is about.
So I was in the introduction.
This is still in the introduction, yes. Does it seem like a lot of the introduction?
Yeah, man.
Well, it's just setting out your stall, but the main body of the essay needs to be in the middle, where you make several points, for and against. So who would support the view in the question that social class structure is changing? Who would support that? Those. So, in the first part, the introduction, we can then say a short sentence where we sum up the views that are for and against the perspective or idea in the question. So we can say the view in the essay question would be supported by postmodernists, Weberians, neo-Marxists and interactionists broadly. So supported by postmodernists. Okay, the neo-Marxists, Weberians, interactionists may support the view broadly. Functionalists, new right, Marxists and feminists may disagree with some parts of this view and criticise other views. So we're giving a sense that we understand generally what the view is about.
So what's EQ?
So the essay question, the view in the essay question, which you have to keep referring to. Some of the changes relate to the way we work and consume, and we'll expand on each of these bits in the essay. So let's look at, straight away, postmodernists.
So this is the first essay. I mean the first paragraph.
First paragraph. I shall read through this paragraph. The voice just... Okay, so postmodernists argue that consumption and materialism have changed the class structure. Okay, we now have a cultural supermarket where we can pick and mix identities.
Which suggests that society is
Heterogeneous. We have heterogeneous experiences. Listen, Abbas, you're not listening to my voice. I was just talking German just to arouse his interest. So,
You don't have to do German girls, innit?
yeah. See where you be going in the summer holidays. Okay. Heterogeneous experiences of social class or social status. This means diverse experiences of inequality, which means that social class, which is traditionally based on occupation, wealth, and culture based on your job, is increasingly less important compared to consumption. What you spend your money on can be more important than how you earn your money or gain wealth. This would be supported by the concept of intersectionality, which means that there is a combination simultaneously of class, age, gender and ethnicity when understanding inequality. This is supported by Anthias, 2001. So we can argue there's less of a distinction between social class groups. Social class structure has either become fragmented or totally unimportant and redundant. This is supported by Pekulski and Waters, who argue class is dead. For example, they say that economic clusterings are less important than issues like status based on age and other factors and consumption choices. We can say that globalization and Americanization lead to a smaller world where social class is less important because people are part of a global village. There's more homogeneity, according to this view, where people are more the same than different. For example, in terms of dress codes, office workers and chief executive officers wear a suit in the office, and it's harder to differentiate between them. Jameson, a Marxist, refers to the global labour markets in capitalism being exploitative. So he's influenced by Marxism, and he says late or advanced capitalism features exploitation, which is changing. The social class structure may still be important for this type of postmodernist, and he might argue that the earlier postmodernists overemphasise the death of class and underemphasise continuing class exploitation based on ownership and wealth. So there's an evaluation point in there. We haven't mentioned knowledge economy and Daniel Bell as well. Have we done enough on postmodernism, do you think?
Yeah.
Yes?
Definitely.
So we need to go, okay, well a little bit more on this view. Bell talks about knowledge economy. Okay, we can talk about a shift from physical powers in the kind of work you do to mental powers in the kind of work you do. Can anyone give an example of a job or an area of work?
Is that going from labour to sort of working services?
Exactamundo. Terrific. So from physical labour, so manual work, industry, industrial production, to non-manual labour, okay, services, information services, teaching, education, financial services, IT, information technology. It's all about knowledge of the latest software or insurance plans or A-level exams. Best example we could give, Google, perhaps? And we looked at videos on this, but Google features workers who are highly
differentiated.
Well, that's the question, are they differentiated? You can say that there's a shift from the centralisation of work to things like outsourcing, innovation. There's also the concept of JIT. If you're doing economics, you might know about JIT. So, JIT. So you find in America and Japan, this comes from Japan as well, you have the idea of quality through constant improvement based on the worker having responsibility for the production process. So instead of having a senior manager who's controlling everything from above, everyone's kind of controlling their own part of the workplace. So you have car workers who are changing their processes to try and be more effective. So that's innovation. Outsourcing, private companies doing work for bigger companies, again, to try and save costs. Just-in-time economy is to do with, have you heard of that? So, so just-in-time. So it's basically, you have the resources, not in a warehouse, you order them when you need them. So if Abbas wanted 100 pillows with his face on them, going like that, just picture a pillow. He's got little teddy bear ears. And it was kind of pink. His face has been tinted pink using Photoshop.
Cool,
it's kind of cool.
That would sell.
It would sell. It would sell. And if you were to make those pillows, would it be cheaper to have all the stuff in stock and then make the pillows, or to only order it in just when Abbas orders the pillows? It would be cheaper to just order in the resources to make the pillows when you need them. So that's called just in time, and it's supposed to be more efficient and better profits, quicker. This song, I must record this. It must be efficiently recorded so everyone can hear on YouTube. There are many people, millions of people who listen to my voice.
In the dreams.
In my dreams.
32 views.
Yeah, yeah, 10 subscribers. Yeah. So Weberians would argue social class has changed. The market situation and work situation, members of the workforce and labour markets have shifted over time. Social mobility has resulted in fragmentation of the class system, where it's not clear, and it's become divided. Embourgeoisement is a process of working class workers becoming more like the middle class. Goldthorpe tested this theory in his study of car workers in Luton, published his results in 1968, showed that working class workers were becoming like the middle class in some ways, privatised families, but still had elements of the working class. They still had a them and us attitude towards management. So they were like the middle class in some ways, more wealth, privatised families. However, still like the working class in other ways. Did I say that right? Did I get that right? Okay. So we need to evaluate that view later. So we can say, in evaluation of postmodernism, the Weberians would say that they overplay the death of class.
Where would you include this paragraph?
So you could have included this at the start of Weberianism after postmodernism, or you can include it here at the end of the Weberianism section. All right, it doesn't matter as long as we include it.
Weberians,
evaluating postmodernism.
Exactly. The postmodernists overplay the death of class. According to Weberians, they underplay the continuities in the importance of class. For example, in terms of economic factors like income and wealth. The Weberians agree with postmodernists. The agreement between postmodernists and Weberians is over the importance of the multi-dimensional nature of inequality. So overplay. So we can actually make 2 points. We can say that the Weberians would disagree with postmodernists for overemphasising the death of class and underplaying continuities in economic divisions like class based on occupation and wealth. They would agree with postmodernists that inequality is multidimensional. For example, Weber focused on status based on age, gender, race and ethnicity, and party power and influence.
So what does IW mean?
So income and wealth. Okay, so that's point 1 and point 2 there, evaluating postmodernism with Weberianism.
What does it SID, SP, what does SP
So,
social equality?
social inequality difference, status, party. The working class is changing and being remade. Okay? Now what else can we add to that? Any more evidence of that, Fatima?
It's being remade to what exactly?
It's being remade, so what does that mean? Sorry? Sorensen. What does Sorensen say?
That proletariat rent their labour out.
Proletariat rent the labour. Okay, so Sorensen develops Marxist views. He's talking about value, theory of value, and he talks about the proletariat renting out their labour. So he says it's important not just to look at ownership as a form of value, but rents. What would be an example of someone who rents their labour, sells their services?
Someone like a plumber or something like
Just like you.
So a plumber. And there's also Seabrook, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Seabrook.
The new servant class.
The new servant class. Can someone give an example of someone who might be seen as a servant in the economy? Yeah. The waiter, yeah, literally a servant, yeah. That's a traditional type of servant, a waiter. A butler, sorry. So traditionally a butler, Alfred, is a traditional butler, so he's a traditional type of servant. So what's the new type of servant then? Is there a type of job that people do?
Oh, what's that?
Cleaner? Cleaner or maid? What about somebody who works in JD Sports? Are they serving others?
Yeah, man. The bin man.
Sales?
Teachers serving students.
Bin man.
Bin man? Can a teacher be a servant?
Yeah, students.
Civil servant. Everyone's a servant in that way. They all do.
We're all doing something, we're all serving others.
Even drug dealers, they serve
Exactly.
community.
Drug dealers are serving the community, they're providing important resources for the community's consumption. Serving ourselves. So what is the difference between a sales representative in JD Sports, sales assistant in JD Sports? It's got a certain ring to it, isn't it?
Or traditional butler.
Or a butler.
The butler
Is
is
there a
more
difference?
family based, like he's in your house, looks after your kids. The services is happening.
So it's more just.
One's more business based.
One's more business.
And the service is more business based.
So it's economic rather than an informal relationship between a butler and the family that he serves. So you could see in terms of economic relations, which could be seen as more impersonal and exploitative. So what I would say is that the servant class of the past may have benefited from a more interdependent relationship with the middle class. So the butler lived with the family of the middle class, and they may not have eaten at their table. He was able to benefit from their lifestyle in a number of ways. Whereas the new servant class is merely serving us, but is likely not to have a personal relationship with us. It's probably encouraged to smile, but it's probably exploited more than the butler, perhaps, because they're renting out their labour. They're being given less of a wage. So you can see this, like if, for example, 0 hours contracts, insecure jobs. That's the best way I can explain it to you. Fragile positions in the economy. What the idea of a precariat. Precariat. That's outside of the class. It's still recording. Okay, so we've talked about fragile positions in the economy, a new servant class, people who are in part of this precariat, where they have less of a secure position in the economy. This is similar, so they might evaluate this by saying they agree with neo-Marxism about fragmentation in the class system. Okay? For example, Bordeaux is a neo-Marxist. He talks about types of capital, and so he says you might be rich, so you've got economic capital. You might be middle class, so you've got cultural capital. But the difference is that people are now competing where it's more fragmented. It's not so clear anymore. You might have lots of economic capital, but not cultural capital, so you're part of the new rich.
Daddy, did you say you're going to try to finish this in 25 minutes?
I failed, didn't I?
Big time.
Yeah.
So is
Okay.
this video going to be 2 hours long?
No. God, no. Yeah, it might be. No, it won't be.
Are you doing a video or just recording?
It's a video. Okay, so but it's
Picture of the video.
it's not going to pick up the image on the whiteboard though, really. So
Useless then.
Why not zoom in?
it's absolutely useless.
What do you think you're posting the video?
So there's fragmentation of the labour market according to Weberians and neo-Marxists. Bordeaux talks about types of capital, division between the rich, the new rich who've got economic capital but are seen as tasteless in the way they spend their money. The middle class have got cultural capital, so they know what is tasteful. They don't have this economic capital of the rich. So there's this competition. It's not clear who's got status, and everyone's competing in different terms. This would be agreed with by someone like Goldthorpe. Goldthorpe's study looks at 7 to 8 classes of people. The biggest disagreement, what would the theory be that disagrees with neo-Marxism the most?
What was that?
What would be the perspective that disagrees? Okay, so the Weberian perspective would evaluate neo-Marxists for overemphasizing economic factors. Neo-Marxists would foreground the economy, exploitation due to capitalism. The Weberians would say this underplays the independent nature of status divisions, such as age, gender, ethnicity and race, which are separate from the economy.
So they overemphasize capitalism and the economy.
Yes. According to Weberians, status is not just to do with the economy, it's also to do with status based on race, which can be separate from the economic position. It has an impact on your economic position and market status, but it might be a separate independent factor which can always affect your status. And power, again, can be an issue which is not necessarily related to economic wealth.
On the topic of polarization, the gap between rich and poor is widening society.
With polarisation, I bring in traditional Marxists and then evaluate them with Weberians, because the Weberians emphasise fragmentation, not polarisation. So it's the opposite process. Who would emphasise the economy? Marxists. So interactionists might argue that meanings and definitions of social class, positions and roles and status have changed over time. For example, labels and stereotypes are being constantly challenged. This would be particularly supported by postmodernists, who support the idea of competing narratives. And so the grand idea of class is being challenged in the media. However, this could be criticised by Marxists for ignoring the wider system of the economy, the continuing importance of class. And Weberians and neo-Marxists might argue this ignores the role of the economy and the changes to class. Okay, so what theory are we going to look at next?
Offers 2 B's on the CV.
Alright, okay, yeah, didn't really want you to talk about it. Okay.
But you asked, so you know.
I did, I know. Functionalists, okay. Okay, what would functionalists say about the essay question? Samin? Okay, class is still alive. What can we add to that? Class is still alive. Functionalists. Meritocracy. Okay, what studies can we use? Davis and Moore. So it's to do with ability and effort, because they do the work. Okay? Focus and listen and learn. Sacrifice, and they achieve the role and status they deserve.
True.
And this continues to be the case. The functionalists do talk about a shift from ascribed to achieved status, but they tend to say that a modern society features achieved status, and so they might emphasise this continues to be the case. Is there an example of that?
Yeah. Is that what they say? It's all about your skills and stuff.
Skills. So there's a bit of data, government released data. So government data suggested that 60% of the GCSE scores are based on your inherited intelligence quotient and IQ. This would be supported by the new right. People like Saunders argue we live in a divided or unequal but fair society. He would say that if we look at data, we find that 80% of those born into poverty are able to move out of poverty in their lifetime. This is known as social mobility, and it shows intergenerational social mobility. Or that's better, isn't it? Intragenerational social mobility. That means within your lifetime, within your own lifetime, you're able to achieve social mobility.
So what would it be called instead of going upper class, you go down? Like from middle class to working class?
Well, that's what we need to look at with the Marxist view, which is proletarianisation. So how can this be criticised? How can you criticise this view? So you,
Could it be that the talented at the top, there's talented at the bottom as well, that don't get to go to the top?
so it ignores talents across society, including at the bottom. Okay, because the class system is not efficient. Human questions or function important roles. So whereas Davis and Moore say people get the best, most important jobs, Schumann questions this and says, how do we know that these are the most important jobs? For example, doctors earn more than nurses. Is this fair?
Yeah.
And then we can move on to Marxists. Okay. Marxists would argue that the class system would be polarised, so they said there would be polarisation, so the class system would change, but there'd be a simplification of the class system.